Okay, so I'm really excited about today's video because, like the title of this video says, index fund investing really is making my family and myself rich. And it's helping us grow our wealth to a point that we never really thought attainable, to be honest. We're not quite at our goal yet to retire early, but we are really chugging along and really getting there. And it's because of index funds. So in today's video, I want to talk about what an index fund is, how we are using index funds to build our wealth, and a couple suggestions of good index funds, some of which I actually own. So to start off, we need to understand what an index fund is. So an index fund, not to be confused with a mutual fund, it is a type of mutual fund, but it tracks a particular index in the stock market. The best way to understand this is to think of an index fund like a big basket of stocks that tries to copy what a certain part of the stock market is doing. It's different from a mutual fund in that a mutual fund's job is to outperform the market. And when they say the market, they're referring to the S&P 500. The downside of this mutual fund, though, is that the costs will be higher because you're going to have a fund manager, someone that's trying to beat the market. And honestly, and I'll pull it up here, as you can see, the results aren't that great. The benefits of the index fund are that they're super easy. There's no fund manager to speak of that does anything, right? It's pretty automatic. They're low cost, again, because there's no fund managers. And over time, they have better performance. Now, even though, like I mentioned, indexes are pretty simple, it's important to still do your research on what indexes you want to track, number one. And number two, what brokerage you want to go with. Because the things that matter on a brokerage, like how is their customer service, for example, what are their fees, what is their performance. So I'm going to go over three today that I narrowed it down to when I started. And at the end of the video, I'm going to go over the one that I chose, and that's the one I still have today. So the first index I chose, I wanted to track was the S&P 500. And the first brokerage I wanted to look at was Vanguard. So Vanguard's S&P 500 index is VFIAX. And as you can see, its year-to-date returns are 15.65%, and expense ratio is 0.04. And I started with Vanguard for obvious reasons. I read about Jack Bogle. He's the one that started index funds, so I figured, why not start there? I then looked at Charles Schwab and their equivalent of this index, and it's SWPPX, which is their S&P 500 index fund. And year-to-date for them, they have returned 16.6% and have an expense ratio of 0.02. So the expense ratio is a little lower than Vanguard. And lastly, I looked at Fidelity, and their index is FXAIX, which is their 500 index fund. And their year-to-date returns are 16.68% with an expense ratio of 0.015. And a quick disclaimer, like I'm not, affiliated with them by any means, whatever. My channel is way too small for any of that. I'm just saying these are three that I found in my research that had low expense ratios, good returns, and good customer service. So the next index that I wanted to track was a total stock market index. And I know if you're a little more seasoned, you might ask yourself, why do you have an S&P 500 as well as a total stock market when the total stock market covers the S&P 500? And the answer is the S&P 500 was really because my employer 401k. So I had to have an S&P 500 in there. The total stock market is my brokerage account and my Roth IRAs where I use that. And I just wanted something to track in the entire market of the US, including small cap. So for this, we have our first one, which is VTSAX. This one is through Vanguard. And it has year-to-date returns of 15.65% with, again, a low expense ratio of 0.04. Schwab's equivalent is SWTSX. Year-to-date returns on this one is 15.7% and the expense ratio of 0.03%. And last up, we have the Fidelity Zero Total Stock Market Index Fund, which is FZROX. And this one has a year-to-date return of 15.7%. And check this out, an expense ratio of 0, which is incredible and a relatively new thing, past couple of years. So which one do we choose? Drum roll, please. Vanguard. We went with Vanguard. So the only reason we really did this was because I already had an older IRA with them, and I just figured I already have an open account, and it was really easy just to open new accounts. So now I have my Roth IRA, my wife's Roth IRA, a custodial account for my kids, and our bridge account is all through Vanguard, and it's all in VTSAX. So, again, this is not me selling you anything. Do your own research, please. A couple of things to consider would be, again, customer service, the expense ratios, all that kind of stuff, and make sure you feel comfortable and understand what you're investing in before you make any moves. With that being said, I hope this video was helpful, at least pointed you in the right direction, and I will see you next week.